The arena fell silent as two legends stepped into the ring, their eyes locked in a stare that could shatter glass. This wasn't just another tournament fight. This was the collision of two martial arts universes, each carrying the hopes and dreams of millions who had watched them dominate screens and competitions worldwide. In the red corner stood Yang Se, better known to the world as Bolo Yeung, the Chinese Hercules, whose mere presence could intimidate opponents before the first bell rang. At 6 feet tall and carved from what seemed like granite itself, Bolo represented the classical kung fu tradition, with muscles that told stories of 1,000-hour training sessions and a fighting spirit forged in the underground tournaments of Hong Kong. His trademark scowl had become legendary, not just for show, but as a psychological weapon that had crumbled stronger men than those who dared face him tonight. Across the canvas stood Carlos Ray Norris, Chuck to his legion of fans, the Oklahoma Tornado, who had transformed from military police officer to martial arts phenomenon. Standing slightly shorter, but radiating an intensity that filled every corner of the venue, Chuck embodied the American fighting spirit, merged with Tang Soo Do precision. His blonde hair caught the arena lights as he rolled his shoulders, each movement calculated and purposeful, like a coiled spring waiting to unleash decades of disciplined training. The contrast couldn't have been more dramatic. Bolo's fighting style resembled a human battering ram, devastating power delivered through techniques that had been passed down through generations of Chinese masters. Every strike carried the weight of his formidable frame, and his grappling background meant that getting close to him was like walking into a bear trap. His conditioning was legendary. Stories circulated about training sessions where he would break wooden boards with his bare hands until his knuckles bled, then continue for another hour. The man didn't just train his body, he forged it like a weapon in a blacksmith's fire. But Chuck Norris brought something entirely different to this encounter. Where Bolo was raw power, Chuck was surgical precision. His Tang Soo Do background emphasized speed, timing, and the kind of technical excellence that could find openings where none seemed to exist. Years of competition had taught him to read opponents like an open book, and his karate tournament victories proved he could adapt mid-fight when strategies weren't working. His mental game was perhaps his greatest asset, the ability to remain calm under pressure while his mind calculating angles, distances, and timing with computer-like efficiency. As the referee called them to center ring, you could feel the electricity in the air. Bolo's intimidation tactics were already in full display. That famous stare accompanied by the slow, deliberate way he cracked his knuckles. The psychological warfare had begun before the first technique was thrown. Chuck, however, seemed unfazed, his expression focused but relaxed, the look of someone who had visualized this moment countless times in preparation. The opening bell shattered the tension like a gunshot. Round 1 exploded with Chuck using his speed advantage, darting in and out of range while Bolo stalked him like a predator. Every time the Chinese powerhouse committed to an attack, Chuck was already moving, his footwork keeping him just outside that devastating reach. But when Bolo did connect with a thunderous leg kick, the impact echoed through the arena, and you could see Chuck wince despite his poker face. The round belonged to neither man, Chuck's precision versus Bolo's power, setting up what everyone knew would be an epic battle of contrasting styles. The second round saw the pace intensified dramatically. Bolo began cutting off the ring, using his size and strength to force Chuck into corners where that speed advantage meant less. A crushing body shot from the Chinese warrior doubled Chuck over momentarily, and for the first time, doubt flickered across the faces in his corner. But Chuck's conditioning and heart showed as he weathered the storm, even landing a beautiful spinning back kick that caught Bolo flush in the ribs. The crowd erupted as both men showed they could hurt each other. By round 3, the chess match had evolved into something more primal. Sweat glistened on both fighters as they began to abandon some technique in favor of heart and determination. Bolo's overwhelming strength was beginning to take its toll. Chuck's movement wasn't quite as crisp, his breathing slightly more labored. But the American's tactical mind was working overtime, and he began targeting Bolo's lead leg with precise kicks, each one designed to slow down that stalking pressure game. Then came the turning point that nobody saw coming.
Midway through the fourth round, as Bolo pressed forward with another power combination, Chuck timed a perfect counter that would be replayed for decades. As the Chinese legend committed to a devastating right hand, Chuck slipped under it and drove his own right hand directly into Bolo's solar plexus with surgical precision. For just a moment, maybe 2 seconds, Bolo's legendary conditioning betrayed him and he doubled over slightly, gasping for air. Chuck didn't waste the opportunity. Moving with the speed that had made him famous, he followed up with a combination that showcased everything beautiful about martial arts: technique, timing, and killer instinct, all rolled into one devastating sequence. A perfectly placed knee to the body, followed by an uppercut that snapped Bolo's head back, and suddenly the seemingly indestructible Chinese warrior was in serious trouble. The fifth and final round became a testament to both men's warrior spirits. Bolo, hurt but far from finished, came out swinging with the desperation of a cornered lion. His power shots were still dangerous enough to end the fight with one clean connection, and Chuck knew it. But the American's tactical brilliance shone brightest under pressure. Using every technique in his arsenal, he stayed mobile, picked his shots carefully, and slowly but surely accumulated damage while avoiding the knockout blow that Bolo desperately sought. As the final bell rang, both men stood in the center of the ring, bloodied and exhausted, but having given everything they had to give. The crowd was on its feet in recognition of what they had witnessed, not just a fight, but a masterpiece of martial arts combat between two legends at their absolute peak. When the decision was announced, Chuck Norris had won by unanimous decision. The victory came down to tactical superiority and conditioning. While Bolo's power was undeniable and his heart unquestionable, Chuck's ability to implement a game plan under pressure,
Chinese
his
Hercules.
superior cardio, and his technical precision in the later rounds made the difference. He had weathered the early storm, found his timing, and executed when it mattered most. The turning point in round 4 was the culmination of a perfectly executed strategy that took advantage of Bolo's aggressive style while minimizing his own exposure to that devastating power. Both men had proven their legendary
Let's rewind
status
to
that
Chinese
night,
Hercules.
but Chuck Norris had demonstrated why technical excellence, when combined with heart and intelligence, can overcome even the most intimidating physical advantages. It was a victory that would define